I'm Al McFarland. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarland. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you along as well. And we normally have what we call the Healing Circle on Friday. Dr. B is out this week, but she should be returning next week with the Healing Circle. But we have a healing conversation nonetheless. In fact, two. The first is one that has grabbed the attention of the community again, in that it deals with the Hennepin County prosecutor filing charges against a state trooper for the death of Ricky Cobb II. We are fortunate to have his twin brother, Rashad Cobb, here today to talk about what's transpiring in that case and how he feels, how the family feels about what's going on. But we're also pleased to have attorney, former South Carolina Congressman Bakari Sellers, who will be joining the effort to provide counsel to the family. Ricky and Bakari, thank you both for being here. Rashad and Bakari, thank you both for being here.
I do that with Rashad often, so he knows that I oftentimes call him Ricky as well, and his father, Ricky Sr., so it's a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Let me just ask you, if you would, Bakari, to sort of summarize what happened last week with Hennepin County prosecutor.
I mean, the best way to summarize it is that the Hennepin County prosecutor showed a great deal of courage. She followed the law as written. That doesn't always happen. And as I told the family, as I told Rashad, as I told his mother, father, the mothers of his children, his siblings, that this is where they are in this process is unlike many Black families across the country. Usually when your loved one is taken by gun violence, very rarely do you get the opportunity to seek justice criminally. And so my hat goes off to the district attorney's office and everybody in it for a thorough investigation. We were anxiously waiting. It had been some time, the BCA, for a thorough report. There had been some time that had passed and we were anxious, but I kept telling Rashad and Ricky's mother just to be patient. It's coming. I kept telling Rashad, it's coming. And this was just an awesome opportunity for this family. It was the first time in the state's history, I believe, that a state patrol officer was charged for this type of crime, and the world is watching them. And so this is where we are, and I'm very proud. I will tell you that Rashad and Ricky's mother is a woman of great strength and faith, and it's been an honor to be able to speak out, and we're going to do more of that between now and the various hearings that we have, and any other civil process that may commence.
Let me talk about you for a second, just so that our viewers and listeners have a sense of your reference here, your frame of reference. Bakari Sellers is from Denmark, South Carolina. Graduated from South Carolina Public Schools and got his undergraduate degree from Morehouse in 205. I'm a Morehouse man, Bakari.
I can tell. You can always tell a Morehouse man. You just can't tell him much,
right? He served as student body president and got his law degree from the University of South Carolina in 2008. He made history in 2006 when he was just 22 years old. He defeated a 26-year incumbent state representative to become the youngest member of South Carolina state legislature and the youngest African-American elected official in the nation. In 2014, he was the Democratic nominee for lieutenant governor in the state of South Carolina. He's worked for the U.S. Congressman James Clyburn and former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin. He served on President Barack Obama's South Carolina Steering Committee during the 2008 election. And he's widely considered to be a rising star in the Democratic Party and a leading voice for his generation. He was named to Time Magazine's 40 Under 40 in 2010, as well as in 2014, 2015, the Route 100 list of the nation's most influential African Americans. And so that's just a lot, and I think when we talked before, I might have told you how much I appreciated the legacy element of what you presently are, because you come from a family of change makers in our nation and in the world. Okay. And so I'm going to ask you two things and ask you to flow. How significant is the case we're looking at now? Justice for Ricky Cobb II. It's not just a North Minneapolis thing. though it happened in North Minneapolis. And in light of George Floyd and the world paying attention differently now from what it had been, what does this case do? Where does it say we are as a country, as a community, as human beings? And what does it say from within our community, within the movement, about the progress we continue to seek and make? So take that any way you want to, but just flow on it if you will.
That was a big question, Don Lemon. Look, this case, there's a direct line between Emmett Till, Jimmy Lee Jackson, and Ricky Cobb. You know, when you talk about state-sanctioned violence, when you talk about individuals who do not get the benefit of their humanity, that is Ricky Cobb. I make no hesitation. If Ricky was white, he'd be alive today, right? I mean, we can just cut the BS and be 100% honest. You know, my father, I'm actually right now on the campus of South Carolina State University as we record this, waiting on the vice president. But I'm sitting right now like 300 yards away from where my father was shot, February 8th, 1968, in the Orangeburg massacre. And so when I look at Rashad, right, when I look at Ricky's mother, when I look at Ricky's father, and I tell them that, you know, I understand uniquely the struggle that you all are going through, I want them to be able to feel me when I say that, because my father was lucky that he survived. But after he was shot, he was actually the only person arrested for the events of that night. You know, my dad went to jail not once, but twice. He went to prison for with not going into the military draft and going to Vietnam, where he was represented by Johnny Cochran. And my father also went to jail for the events of the Orangeburg massacre. The officers who shot my father, which is why I'm so passionate about this case, were charged, but all found not guilty. And they charged my father with rioting. He became the first and only one-man riot in the history of this country. And when his bond was denied, and when they denied his bond, they even housed him on death row for a little while just to add a little salt to the wound. And so, you know, I don't know how many people in Minnesota know my story, but my heart is always directed towards justice. There were a lot of people who passed on Ricky's case. A lot of lawyers did, just because I'm not sure it was as clear cut as people thought it was. But when you slow it down, when you watch it, when you watch his words, when you watch what happens in the video, you watch the negligence of the officers, both of them, you watch the shots fired by one of them, you realize that this was an injustice of the magnitude of everyone else. Now, Ricky Cobb's case will not be George Floyd's case, because we're not in a pandemic where everybody has to sit down and watch the video over and over and over and over again. But the similarities are quite amazing, because at the end of the day, neither one of them committed a death penalty crime. And just as George Floyd should be alive, Ricky Cobb should be alive as well.
Well, that's why I wanted you to put this thing in context. And you've done that by talking about your father being a victim of shooting, number one, of state violence, but also penalized for being alive, right? And so, while on the one hand, our white friends want to say when things happen, it's a one of, but that's not the case. And so where are we as a culture and as a community, as you see it? And I think we're going somewhere. How do you describe that?
I mean, I think it's fair. And I think anybody who doesn't answer the question, and the audacity of me for telling y'all how to answer this question, I'm only 39, but telling you and your viewers how you should answer the question. But the answer is, we've made progress in this country, but we still have yet a ways to go. And people like to put a period after progress, right? We've made progress, period. But no. Rashad did not expect a phone call that night, right? Naira did not expect a phone call that night. Ricky Cobb Sr. did not expect they didn't want to be in the same fraternity or sorority that the family members of just George and Ahmaud and Brianna and Alton and Keith Lamont and Walter. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, we're talking Tamir. I mean, we're talking LaToya James. I mean, we can name so many people, and that is the burden that Black folk in this country bear. I mean, Black History Month is Black History Month, but we carry this burden 365 days a year. And Rashad and his sisters and his mother and his father are going to have to carry this unique burden in a way that's unimaginable.
Rashad, what are you feeling right now? And thank you so much again for being here. Thank you for the courage to speak up, to show up, and to not be intimidated by the horrific nature of the circumstance that creates the attention that you have to pay to right now. Thank you, first of all. How are you feeling?
Well, thank you for having me, Al. I'm blessed to be alive. I can't complain on that aspect. Feelings, they change every day, but the purpose of the feeling is the same. You know, um, Knowing that a change is coming, keeps me joyful and hopeful, keeps my faith alive, right? But seeing the same thing over and over and over, it's old at this point, so looking at the direction that we have to go, the only way we can do it is to come together and actually make a change for us. Because going through this consistently ain't doing nothing to the mental for us as a people.
What are you and your the elders in your family saying to your children and Ricky's children? How do you explain this to what happened to the loss of your twin brother to a child? And what feedback or what are you hearing back? How do you assess that?
Um, at this point, it's really just explaining to them that we're here for a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
You know, these bodies we have, they're temples for our spirits. And, the kids are very smart nowadays, as we know. Explain to them a spiritual warfare and letting them know, paying attention to the Most High is the most important part to the situation. Things like this that happens to us, they're trials and tribulations. You know, Nobody gave us a handbook on how to go through life. So with the kids, growing up without their father, just seeing my face, it helps them.
Mhm.
It's always, oh, that's my dad's twin. That's my dad's
Mhm.
twin. I'm
Mhm.
thinking in my head like, yeah, of course. So the message that we consistently give the kids, is to keep the faith, because if we don't show them just a mustard seed of faith, they won't know which way to go or how to lean on when things get hard, like times are now.
I'll tell you
Bakari,
this.
go
Let
ahead.
me just come in real quick because Rashad is an example of this. I mean, even in, we have our own, and Rashad can attest to this, when doors close, we have our own discussions, right? We keep those discussions behind closed doors and other phone calls. But Rashad, Ricky Sr., Naira, the family have been strong throughout this process in the face of the best example I can give you in terms of their strength. And I don't even think Rashad actually understands it to be strength. It's something that comes kind of second nature to Black men in this country. But, there were 100 officers in Minneapolis who took PTO to show up at the hearing last
Mhm.
week. And frankly speaking, I had never seen anything like this. And I do these type of cases all around the country,
Mhm.
just that sheer show of force. But the family, no matter what is going on behind closed doors or what issues we have to overcome, we all wrapped arms together. And I looked at Rashad. He was, had a look on his face. I had his sister's hand and his mother's hand, and Ricky Cobb was behind us. Ricky Cobb Sr. was behind us. And I said, we just going to walk through this crowd. And when it was over, we just showed the strength of a family and walked through that crowd. And I tell you that example, Al, because no other culture in the United States of America has to be prepared to take on this type of onslaught spiritually, emotionally, physically, etc. And this family, although they were not prepared to go through it, has some preparation just by virtue of being Black and seeing other families go through it. I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense. And how daunting is it to have had 100 troopers, officers, people on my payroll and on Rashad's payroll, right? People that we fund. How daunting is that? And to have them show up and by their presence insinuate that the death of Ricky was a deserved death. They're not saying that, but they are saying it from my point of view as a communicator observer. What about that?
When you look at history, and you look at mobs, they did that for intimidation tactics. So when you look at our city and you can see that within our law enforcement, that doesn't look pretty good when you're there to protect and serve, but you can take time off to come down and defend a murderer when your job is to defend the city or the state, since you guys are troopers or officer, whatever your rank is, and just to come together just for a scare tactic, it didn't really work. We walked through, we went to the hearing and everything, but just the looks on their faces, it wasn't inviting, And in my eyes, I'm looking at it like y'all looking at me like I did something to y'all, right? Then y'all out here chanting, and you got these flags, and knowing history, it made me seem like we was back in like the 1960s or something. It didn't feel like 2024. It felt like we was walking to one of them, hanging rallies or something, where they was just, oh, let's get together and go watch this, woo, woo, and it was like, whoa, this where it was. And, me personally, for a hearing, I didn't expect that. I just expected to walk in, we do our thing, so to see that force like that for the cause is, it wasn't scary, but it's
I'm hearing you,
concerning.
and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm hearing you describe what felt like a lynch mob
Yeah.
of
Yep.
people in uniform. And as I said, people on my payroll, I'm paying their
Yep.
taxes, right?
For
And on
sure.
your
For sure.
payroll, but they assembled in the spirit and the persona, the character of a lynch mob,
Yep.
condoning what has happened to your brother, your twin, but
Right.
also sort of suggesting that there be no accountability for one in their ranks. Go ahead, Bakari.
Yeah, no. I want people to understand a few things. What we're doing is a journey of accountability, which is essential. It's very important. Criminally accountable is what we're looking for. And I've talked to Rashad, I've talked to the family multiple times that most people don't get this opportunity. So we're not going to mess it up. We want to see this go all the way through. Civil accountability, deterrence. The only way that you can make sure this doesn't happen again is by ensuring they understand the value of Black life, which is hard, right? But this isn't justice, because justice would be Ricky Cobb being at Thanksgiving and birthdays and Christmases and being able to hug his kids. I was able to see his children, or two of his children, for the first time and just think about that. I mean, your kids now have to meet your family's lawyer, and they're like, why do we have a lawyer? They know that their dad has died, right? And then they have to see images or video of their dad dying on TV for the world to see. They have to hear his last words echoing, being, begging, because you can tell that Ricky's feeling the situation's going south quickly. So he's asking for ways very, very politely and calmly to get out of the situation, to call his lawyer. The kids have to see that. And then, Al, this was the wild part to me. Those children sat on the aisle, and I pay attention to all of this stuff, but they sat on the aisle of the courtroom, and they had to witness their dad's murderer by them, right? And stand in front of them, be literally, and Naira too, stand less than 3 feet away from where they are. And that pain, that struggle is just a lot.
How can that not remind you of the Emmett Till courtroom?
That's exactly what it is. That's why I tell you, Al, when I started, you asked me the question. I said, there's a direct correlation between what we see with Emmett, his mom, Mamie. You think about how many Black moms are in the same shoes as Mamie Till, even in 2024. I think Rashad's goal is a lot like mine, which is why we have a great deal of respect for each other, because we want this to stop. We don't want any more children to have to go through this.
Right.
How can and should the public react to the statements of the professional association of the patrolmen that came out of the box, blasting the county attorney, saying that she is perpetuating open season on law enforcement? That is crazy. But that's the narrative that they want the country to adopt, that white people that kill Black people are being treated unfairly.
See, it's really unfair if you're a cop and you have a family, right? You know, your wife didn't cook your eggs right, or she didn't make your coffee right, or you didn't get laid last night, or it could be anything on his mind that he's gonna take to work and most likely take it out on the people he's supposed to protect and serve.
Mhm.
Now, if you look at the numbers, we're down on those numbers. We don't know what, caused your detriment on your mental, right? You came to work on the clock with that thinking, right? But when you go for a job, they ask you, are you a felon, right? But when you go for a cop, they don't ask you, are you racist?
I mean,
That right
that's good.
there, that's
Yeah,
not fair.
yeah.
I think Rashad's also highlighting about the mental health and competency of officers. I think they should actually have, a mental health exam yearly, just because of understanding coming into the force what type of mental trauma you had and what you see in a year. Now, Al, Rashad, me, I don't know you all that well, but most Black folk have somebody in law enforcement in their family.
For
Right.
sure.
It may not be
For
in your
sure.
immediate family, but you got a cousin somewhere that's
Yep.
a police
For
officer,
sure.
and the same here. And
For
we
sure.
all want them to come back home safely. Like for me,
Exactly.
I tell my friends, I'm like, I don't want less cops. I just want better cops. Can we just start like better cops? That's what I want. And with the statement
Right.
of I don't, police unions around the country, some of them are better than others. I pray for the county attorney because she made a difficult decision. She needs our prayers.
For sure.
For strength and coverage. I mean, the threats that were coming from those officers out front were just, you'd be surprised by the language they were using to describe her and the signs they had.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's not open season on police officers. This family, Octavia, Rashad's sister, was very clear in her anger. She said, "We don't want anybody doing anything crazy in the streets of Minnesota. We don't want anybody doing any harm, no violence. We want justice for Ricky Cobb II." And I hadn't heard anything that clear, Al, in a long period of time with someone with that much pain.
Mm.
Awesome. Let me pivot. You've got to leave in 4 or 5 minutes, I think, Bakari. Thank you for joining us. You're in South Carolina. You got an important election coming up.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
And it's related to this case because it's all tied together.
Yes.
The soul of our nation and the direction of our country. So what are your thoughts on what's happening with the election and South Carolina's role in it?
Well, first of all, let me just say to the Attorney General in the great state of Minnesota is a fine elected official. Shout out to Keith Ellison for doing good work. The county attorney did what she was supposed to do. This election is about democracy and the threat to it. Democracy is very fragile. And I think what we have to do, and what I encourage Madam Vice President and the President of the United States to do, is to continue to give people who look like me, you and Rashad, I think Black men are very important in this process, a reason to vote for you again. We understand what the successes you've had in the first term, but oftentimes our voices just are not heard. And
Right.
so we want to lift our voices up as much as possible. And I believe that Joe Biden will carry today simply because we can't have another 4 years of Donald Trump. That is just, I just think about it often, Al and Rashad. Just imagine if one of the three of us had 5 kids by 3 baby mamas, had a history of racism, bankrupt, got an $83 million judgment against us from a credible rape allegation and defamation.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be under the jail,
Mm-hmm.
let alone talk about running for president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The threat that Donald Trump brings is something so serious. On another note, Al, I will tell you, I spoke to Skip Moss a couple of days ago.
Spike Moss
a couple of days ago. Spike, I got to get Spike Lee in my head, Spike Moss. And I've also spoken to William Barber. William Barber's coming to Minneapolis pretty soon, I believe during the month of February, and going to gather some ministers up, and we're going to have a prayer breakfast, and the family's invited, and we'll let everybody know the date and time of that, so we can actually pray for and lift voices up spiritually and emotionally for Ricky Cobb II. So we're not going to let this voice die, and we're bringing in some national leaders to show.
Well, we'd be glad to do a live stream to promote it both locally and nationally through our platform. So that's awesome. Bakari
Thank you
Sellers.
for the opportunity. I appreciate you, Al. It's a pleasure to see you like this, and please let me buy you lunch next time I'm in the city.
There we go. Thank you, man. And have a great day. Regards to all of your family and people that you hold dear. Thank you so much.
All right. Love you, Rashad. Peace, brother.
Love you, brother.
Rashad, I've got about 5 more minutes before I go to my next part of the program. But I want to thank you again and just tell you how important what you're doing is and what you're saying is. And I simply want to be a place where you can feel free to say what you think and what you feel in pursuit of a righteous cause, and that is justice. Because as Bakari said, and as you have said, Ricky should be here right now. He should be here. He should be here.
And I thank God for brothers like you and your and other brothers like yourself that have these platforms, for us to to speak to you guys, on these situations without it being filtered, through their networks and their media, So I really thank God for you guys, and I really, really appreciate the support for sure.
Okay, well, look, with that, let's call this, as a pause, and we'll get back with you as things develop. We want to follow this story
Yes,
week
sir.
by week. So, our lines are open, and our mission and our commitment is to make sure that everybody we can tell the story, we do tell the story. It's a story
Yes,
that
sir.
must be told.
I
Brother
got you,
Rashad
man.
Cobb, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Al. You have a great day. Stay
All
blessed.
right. Yeah, I'm going to take a quick break here, and we'll come back with my next guest. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. Are you or someone you know recovering financially from the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, or any other reason? If so, help is available. Findhelp.org is a site to find a wide range of resources, including food, medical care, and more. The best part is based on your zip code. Visit findhelp.org, enter your zip code and the service you need. You'll get a map directing you to the organizations that can help you. Help is waiting at findhelp.org. If you need help starting anew, findhelp.org is the site for you. I'm Al McFarland. Welcome back to The Conversation with Al McFarland. I'm going to continue and pivot to my next guest, my friend, a leader of thought and action in our community, and a leader in the work of healing. Also an entrepreneur, just an exceptional, wonderful human being, Shirlynn LaChapelle. Sister Shirlynn, good to see you. How are you? And
I'm great. Just unmuted. I had to change 2 computers.
Okay. Well, I hear you perfectly now, and thank you for being here. And we are here pretty often on Fridays anyway with the Healing Circle with Dr. B. We're kind of on hiatus for a week or 2, but we thought this would be a great chance to talk about your new role as the medical officer, the chief medical officer, I believe, at Turning Point. And, we had talked to our friend, Dr. Peter Hayden, PhD, and to his successor,
Lori Wilson, CEO.
CEO, right? And so things are in movement, and we expect for continued ability and capacity to serve our community in what I think are perilous times. But first of all, welcome. Happy New Year. Good to see you.
Happy New Year to you too.
So talk about your new role and talk about Turning Point. Let people know that might not know about it, what the organization is and why it's so important, why its work is so important, and why its approach is so important, because it's been a guiding light. It's created new space in the area of serving our people. Talk about that, if you would.
Well, I'm very proud and happy to be the new medical director of Turning Point, which is over 50-year legacy organization that's primary focus is on providing I'm going to say health and healing to those of us who have succumbed to substance abuse issues or substance use issues. And I'm going to say what Lori Wilson, our new CEO, she's got great plans for Turning Point. She has hired a great team and she's still putting more people on the team. Her program director, Dwayne Hicks, is wonderful. And I mean, they've got their heads together. They're busy all day trying to develop new and beneficial programming. We are growing, we are rebuilding, and we have a few beds open. And it's important that culturally specific programs be front and center as far as the healing of our community. We understand, and it's backed up by science, that many people who are using and abusing drugs and alcohol are self-medicating because of all the discrimination, racism, and other traumas that they've had to experience throughout life and generationally. You know, we might say, oh, he's out there on drugs, this and that, but we need to understand that historically, everything that has gone on in this country has damaged us psychologically. We are the walking wounded. And many of us, unfortunately, when the wounds continue to fester and it's like being whipped and then you're still getting whipped. It never has a chance to heal. And so some of us who just can't manage without self-medicating, we do. We all are not created equally as far as resilience. And we have to understand that it's nothing wrong because someone is not as resilient as you. About the same thing that's wrong that everybody's not born a genius. We are given whatever skills and abilities by the Creator, and that's what we've got. And we've got to work through life every day using those things and trying to adapt. We're all a work in progress.
Take a minute, Shirlyn, if you would, and lay out your career and the work and engagement path that brings you to this position. You've got a phenomenal career in nursing, and we can talk about the business career a little later. We'll talk about nursing right now because I think it makes a difference to sort of establish the authority with which you speak.
Well, I've been a nurse since 1974. I started at Cook County Hospital on the trauma unit, first trauma unit in the nation. I worked burns, I worked emergency room, I worked critical care. I came here, I worked University of Minnesota, surgical ICU, that's transplants and neurosurgery. I worked Hennepin County in trauma services. I was their first interventional radiology nurse. They made the job for me. I was on the biomedical ethics committee for 10 years there. And leaving that, I was president of the Black Nurses Association for approximately 10 years. And we did a lot of public health with Southside, Clarence Jones, the community health van, and Health Fair 11, where we provided health services to the community. We brought it where the community was, to the streets. And we did cardiovascular, diabetic teaching, and screenings. And all of those things, I've done a lot in healthcare. And then I went back to school for psychiatry because I realized that you can't treat one part of the body without understanding that the brain is part of the whole shebang. You know, you don't take the head and the brain and put it over on the side and then treat all of this because the brain controls everything. If you're stressed out, if you don't have adequate nourishment, housing, a job, if things are going haywire in your life and you're stressed, I don't care. All the medication in the world will not be able to control your health condition. We can't control your diabetes when you're stressed, when you're homeless, when you don't have access to healthy food, and the relationships in your life are not there. we will not be able to do that, or your blood pressure. So understanding that, I realized that that was something else I needed to learn. I've dealt with people who had mental illness my whole career, but I want to impact it on a medical level.
And so you come out of the advanced training with a title of
Psychiatric. I got Master's of Science in Nursing,
mhm.
Psychiatric and Mental Health Nurse Practitioner, board certified.
Awesome, awesome. So you know, what I love about Turning Point is that Black people started it, people that had a problem themselves,
Yes.
recognized that they had a problem, but they also recognized that the solution to the problem was within.
Yes.
That if they have the problem, they also have a solution to it. They can fix it. And so Turning Point was a bold step in responding to personal and neighbor and family, crises and trauma in an organized, business-like way. And when I think of Dr. Hayden, I'm reminded, like my grandma used to say when I was a kid, boy, mind your business, right? And we were in a church family growing up in Kansas City. And at that time, she was specifically speaking about mind your business being the church business. And somehow she maybe never said it, but I took from her the idea that God's business is the biggest business on the planet, and it's a good business to be in. But I take away from that to the idea that business is important in any discipline, and that even in health, we ought to mind our business.
Absolutely.
Our health is our business. And there is an approach to organizing ourselves as problem solvers, right?
Yeah.
Capable and prepared to solve problems in our community and in the world, and profit from the expertise and genius we bring to building and creating solutions. So that's what Turning Point represents to me. It looked at a broad palette of responses to how human beings, need help when they have challenges, crises, failures, etc. And they developed some methods for treating people. But then they took the step deeper to see the intersection between cultural bias, cultural supremacy, and the self-interest of maintaining certain populations in a position of dependency by excluding the capacity for those populations to be healing for themselves. You see where I'm going with this?
I got
talk about. So this is important because it seems to me that the idea of us being the answer is the idea we got to talk about in every sector of endeavor. And what you are doing and what Turning Point is doing is one of the critical places, because the mind, and the body, they have to be healed, healthy. And we must, and we have to be responsible for that healing and that health in our own bodies and our own families, our own communities. What do you think?
I agree with you, Al. It's so important. I have many patients who come to me, and the first thing they say when I talk to them on the phone before they come in to the office, they say, "Are you African American?" I said, "I'm African American." They said, "Real African American?" I said, "What do you mean? Born and raised here?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Chicago." "Good, because I'm from Chicago too. You're going to understand me. We're going to work out." I say that to say this. If they came from somewhere else in the States, any familiarity, anything that can be something that can attach, that makes it possible for them to open up easier to you. And not only was I Black, born in America, but I came from Chicago. And he told me everything.
Mm.
And he told it to me the regular way.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to him the regular way. I
Mm-hmm.
don't use big words. I never have when I talk to patients. You leave that in a hospital. That's when you're talking to other professionals. If you hope to get or develop a therapeutic relationship, that's like developing a friendship, only there are boundaries to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to feel comfortable with you if I'm going to open up and tell you what's hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to feel comfortable with you and feel like you care about me before I can take your advice to do things that could benefit me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I don't trust that you care, then I'm not going to do anything you said, even though it will help me, because I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid it's the same thing I've been dealing with whenever I've encountered the healthcare system. And the another point is, Al, on what you said, there was an article, I think in the newspaper. Roxanne Given sent me the thing on X, and I listened to it, but it's basically true. The therapist said that there is, it's like finding a needle in the haystack to find a Black healthcare provider or mental health provider.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons is because it's difficult to get in programs. After you get in the program, the most difficult part is finding somewhere to get your internships, which are required in order to finish the program. And then after finishing, you need to get so much experience. That's another difficult part. Now, I'm not going to say anything other than what's really happening. It's almost like there is a systemic plan to block us from ever attaining those designations and ever being able to help our community. I'm going to say this, and this is just a fact. There's a lot of money in mental health,
Mm-hmm.
a lot, huge quantities. And when more practitioners are out here, that pie has to be split among more people. I think that's great. Split it. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But prices do come down
Mm-hmm.
when there are more people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we go to school for nursing, to be doctors, to be whatever, I hope, to help people. And the financial incentives should be secondary. But unfortunately, that's a lot of what's going on. And while anybody can help anybody, anybody can't help anybody.
I got it. I hear you. You know, so two things come to mind in this conversation, Shirlynn, and thank you so much for breaking it down and sharing it. But I go to my own experience. I said this again, and I keep saying it because I think it's important that I have a therapist that I meet with pretty much every Friday and have been for the past 3 or 4 years. And I can tell you that, you know, it's been a session that I look forward to every week. And I feel better after every week because it allows me to say or look or think or examine me, right? How I feel, how I think, what I think is important, what I think is not important, what I'm not looking at that I should be looking at, right? But in a way that does not judge me or make me feel condemned for my shortcomings or for my whatever, you know, I'm bringing to the therapy session every week. And so the point is, my therapist is a Black woman, and the company is a Black company that she works for. And to me, that's the key to this deal. And for that, even though you say money isn't the mission, but our health still is our business. And yes, you know, sometimes you'll see, you know, the principle of scarcity working, where the fewer there are, the more money those few can make solving the problem. But you and I know the problem is big, and we're not touching the problem.
No.
And so what we need to do, from my point of view, is educate our people, number one, to recognize that we are walking problems, living with problems, but beyond that, to say that we are also the solution
Absolutely.
to our problems, right? The solution is within us, right? And we need to be together in relationships, and these can be business relationships, solving problems, businesses problem solving. And we could develop and train that skill, that capacity, and share it, bring more people into the healing business, into the problem solving business, create employment for problem solvers, and that employment helps the rest of us do what we do better, more effectively and more profitably, if that's what our aims are. But I think that, again, that ties back to my praise for Dr. Hayden and for you and for Sister Lori, who's taking over as the new CEO of Turning Point, to be in the position to demonstrate how we can be and do for each other. I think is powerful.
It is so important. And I've known Lori for a while, but knowing her in this capacity, that sister works hard.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a heart for Turning Point. I don't feel it's just a job for her.
Mm-hmm.
She literally is brainstorming all the time to see what can be done. How can we take Turning Point to the next level? Dr. Hayden did a magnificent job.
Phenomenal. And against all the odds.
All the odds.
Because the institutions lined up against them. The people that ran the enterprise of chemical dependency treatment using the scarcity model didn't want to have him taking their business away. But they weren't healing our people, from my point of view.
And now a lot of the other big concerns who do this type of work, they have added 1 or 2 Black people, and now they have a so-called culturally specific program. Now, within those culturally specific programs, they may have a therapist or 2, but how much leeway is there for the therapist to really be authentic,
Mm-hmm.
Be able to just reach in culturally?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are in a white institution, I don't care if they say diversity and inclusion, there's only so much that the diversity and inclusion officer or therapist can do, because you dare not get outside of these lines. And when in therapy, you cannot talk about racism and how it's affecting you, because now we're talking about me and my folks.
That's right.
No, you can't do that. Well, we need to talk. Why were you having that conversation in group with them? That's not helpful. Mm-hmm. Well, it's helpful to the client, to the patient. Mm-hmm. If they can't be authentic and talk about their feelings, their real feelings, without I'm not going to say whitewashing them or leaving out something because somebody might get upset. What kind of therapy is that? Mm-hmm. It's not. It is absolutely not. I have some clients who start cursing. I realize that if they're schizophrenic or whatever, and then right after they're cursing, they're apologizing. I said, that's okay. I got you. You. Sure. Yeah, but you cool. I said, hey, I understand. I just said, I'm from Chicago. I get it. The projects. Okay, I got you. But you got to take it like you get it. You can't have your feelings in the way. We are dealing with clients, patients, what have you, who may have problems with reality testing, problems with expressing themselves outside of what you might consider rude and whatnot. But we're supposed to be the professional. And if I got my feelings in this, how am I helping them?
And I think the studies are saying more and more. I don't have the studies in front of me, but I heard an NPR newscast a couple of days ago where a researcher was saying that when people find someone that looks like them, what you just said, sounds like them, and that they feel they can relate to, they have better outcomes in all aspects of health. I had a show a couple of days ago with Eric Mahmoud and with Dr. Timothy Childs. You know Timothy Childs?
Yes.
Amazing, and he's a physicist and entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
Eric Mahmoud, the educator. But both of them exemplify, as you do, and as Peter Hayden does and Lori Wilson does, the idea that when we bring our authentic selves and our lived experiences to each other, there is an open channel through which excellence flows and through which capacity is nourished and allowed to thrive, and through which healing occurs, right? And our challenge has to be to declutter. A word I've heard a lot is to decolonize our minds, because the institutions that exist around us that we have not created, that have subjected us to the idea of white supremacy as normal.
Yes.
When we show up questioning that, they'll say, you must be crazy. Shirley and I watched the show last night on TV about, was it Exonerated? Or there was two shows on. One was about the murder of Malcolm X called Exonerated. But before that, there was an hour show, maybe it's a series, that showed King and Malcolm growing up as babies, as toddlers, as preteens, high school, etc. But one of the scenes in Malcolm's life was where cops came to, or no, some regular old white people came to their house and confronted his dad and mom about, didn't you know there's a covenant here and you in a white neighborhood and you ain't supposed to be here, right? And so that was setting the stage for what eventually happened. What happened within a day or so, when a few days later, a mob came and firebombed the house. And the dad said, I can't show them fear. I got to go to town and confront them. But before he got to town, he was apparently murdered, right? And then at some point in time later, the scene showed a paddy wagon from the state hospital rolling up and taking Malcolm's mother, because she must have been crazy to think she could live in that neighborhood. That's the point. You must be crazy, Negro, to think you can do what we do.
That's right.
And that's the cultural, institutional construct that seeks to dominate and destroy our humanity.
Yes.
And what it really does, we know, is destroying their humanity, And at the end of the day, we're going to win. Our victory is both imminent and inevitable. But that's what we're fighting, is that kind of entrenched, myopic, sometimes you can call it evil, that is inhumane.
It is.
I don't know where I was going with that, but that's just my feelings from just the conversation we had.
I want to say the last conversation you had with the young man whose brother was murdered by the state police, and he and Bakari were talking about 100 cops came to court, and you're right, Al. That's our dollar that they're running around, going to court on, taking time off when they ought to be out there protecting, serving and protecting. But it just made me think again that the way they were acting, they were like a lynch mob.
Yeah.
The real them came out. You understand what I'm saying? They didn't have to pretend to be professional. They didn't have to pretend to be non-biased. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you were speeding. They did just the real them, growling like a wild pack animal. I'm going to get you. I'm going to do something to you. You don't deserve to exist. How dare you come against us? We can do what we want. That's what that makes me think and feel like. And it's frightening when you understand these people have guns. and
Mhm.
they're supposed to be charged with serving
And protecting.
protecting.
Yeah. Well, I think they didn't get the memo that says that means everybody, because they think they're serving and protecting white people, and that what they have to protect them against is Black people, and that's a problem. That's a problem, right? And it's a problem that is embedded in
Yeah.
the framework of the founding of the nation.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, but it has to be dealt with. Yeah, let me shout out Don Shelby, who's on Turning Point's board of directors, who's listening.
Yes.
Don, thank you, and thank you for your note. Appreciating that you're watching, and appreciate your work in supporting Turning Point. So, Shirlynn, let's focus in the next few minutes here, with 3-4 minutes on Turning Point. What do you see? What do we need to do? What does Al McFarland need to do to make sure that all of our community knows that this marvelous resource is there, and we need to make sure that every possible person that needs the service can get to the service, that all the beds are full, and that the organization is able to grow and expand to serve more people. The
Yeah.
opioid crisis is real, and it's killing us and damaging us. The addiction challenges, and the alcohol challenges, killing us. How do we encourage our people to both know about and utilize, not just people that are using, but their families,
Well,
and the
I'm
people
gonna
they
say
touch and they work for? What do we do?
Yeah. Number one, we need to support the whole community, the Black community as well as the white community needs to support this legacy organization, because understand what happens to one part of the population bleeds over to the other.
Mhm.
When you have people addicted to drugs, they're going to be robbing in order to find money to buy fentanyl, whatever illegal drug it is.
Mhm.
So if we can help people get off drugs and to have a life again, it makes it safer all across the board. Now, what we're trying to do, and I'm supporting Lori in my capacity, and she's got a great team. We are trying to make sure that all the pieces are in place, that our policies, our procedures, and that we have the proper programming and people in place that will successfully be able to help people heal. One of the ideas that I talked to Lori about, and she's in agreement with, I'd like to see a holistic model. What that holistic model looks like, of course, we'll do a physical. I'll do a physical and history on everybody so that I know what their medical backgrounds are. Anybody that needs to be on medication, we want to make sure that happens. I want to contact their providers so that we're on the same page, so that the patient or the client gets what's needed. One of my other thoughts, and let me bring Marvin Smith into this because I've talked to him about this. He's got money from the government, I think, Al, for training, to help people train in the trades, and they will actually get paid. My holistic model would include therapy for not just our clients, but we know their families are fractured. We know they're estranged from significant other children and things like that. In a whole person model, we need to address that with family therapy. Because if we get them off drugs and their life is still a shambles, they're going to still self-medicate.
Sure.
If you don't have a job so that you can respect yourself and your family can respect you and you can provide a living for yourself and your family, you're going to self-medicate. So with all these things, and if you have been abusive in the past, that's therapy. We've got to help them not only heal, but help their brain, because when you've been using substances for a long time, the chemistry in your brain changes. And that's going to take longer than 90 days to get there. So we need a longer outpatient program, more housing. It's a lot we need, but I want to tell you, we're looking at it. Lori is forward thinking. He is planning this. And what we need more money.
Mhm.
We need
Mhm.
grants in
Mhm.
order to do this. You know, all of the dreams and the work and the ideas and plans will go nowhere without adequate funding.
Mhm.
And those who really have a heart for Turning Point, please help us get the funding that we need. Please back up Lori in her plans to really take this historic institution to the next level. We want to be an example for the rest of the country about what holistic care is for people who have been trapped by substance use issues. And that would include healthy diet. We're going to put in healthy diet. Again, we're going to do a history, physical. If you got diabetes, you can't be eating all that stuff. Everybody needs to be on a healthy diet, which is basically the Mediterranean diet. But we're going to pay attention to your health issues as well as your mental health issues and try to help you get your life back together so you could have a hope for the future.
We're out of time, but thank you so very much. I made notes of things we said, just images in my mind. You called us the walking wounded. That's a powerful description, and I think we have to recognize the pain in ourselves, our families, our communities. And you said it's like being whipped and then whipped again and whipped again, so that the wounds never heal. It's pain and pain and trauma and trauma. But you also said that we have the capacity to be change agents in our own right for ourselves. And if we do that, we're changing the society at the same time. Shirlynn, thank you so very, very much. Let's keep this conversation going and keep up the good work. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Al McFarland. We'll see you next time.